The sixth area where Petsy is different has to do with the way that therapists go about influencing clients, or not. As a professor and supervisor for almost 40 years, I've been able to watch hundreds of therapists interacting live with couples. I've come to believe that therapists can make two different kinds of mistakes when it comes to how they attempt to influence their clients. One mistake involves being too authoritative. For example, sometimes therapists flat out tell their clients what to do rather than presenting possibilities for them to consider. Sometimes they talk to the clients as if it's obvious that they are right and the clients are wrong. If a client disagrees, sometimes the therapist tells the client or implies that the client must not be thinking right due to their, stressful situation or their mental condition. Sometimes therapists talk over the client when the client has objections or reservations. Sometimes therapists announce their interpretations as if the subject is now closed. They don't invite the client to discuss their reactions to the suggestions. They make it uncomfortable for the client to object. Other therapists swing in the opposite direction. They don't make any direct suggestions to the client, even when the clients ask. I think this is a mistake too. We couples therapists know much more about relationships than most clients, and they need to hear what we have to say. And you know what? I don't think you can really avoid communicating your opinions anyway. They'll leak out. It's really a matter of how direct or not you're going to be. I believe that therapists need to do two things at the same time. Number one, they should share their opinions and suggestions directly. And number two, they need to make it as comfortable as possible for clients to disagree. I think that sometimes we handle clients with kid gloves more than we need to. We assume they can't handle direct challenges. But when they get offended, I think it's usually because the therapist hasn't created an environment that makes the client feel empowered to reject the therapist's opinions or suggestions if they don't make sense to them. Clients generally appreciate therapists who are straightforward and don't beat around the bush, if they are respectful of the fact that the client might see things differently. Most clients like it when we give suggestions, but they like it because we're not trying to impose them on them. Before even making suggestions, we often say things like, I have some thoughts about the situation. Do you want me to share them? And if the client says yes, we often say things like, okay, I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and then you tell me what you think about what I'm thinking, okay? You may or may not agree with me. And then after we make suggestions, we often say things like, hey, I'm just one therapist trying to make sense of your situation, and there might be others who would see things differently. I'm not God, and you should decide for yourself what you believe. Or we might say, hey, you're the boss of you, and it's up to you to decide whether you think the things I'm saying fit or not. I'm not telling you what you should believe or what you should do. I'm of the opinion that you should do and believe whatever seems right to you. If I was in your position and my therapist was telling me something I didn't agree with, I simply wouldn't do it. But the fact is, we don't wait for clients to express reservations. We invite them, and we're happy when they come. We often say things like, I imagine there must be some part of you who's having trouble accepting the things I'm saying. Yeah? Come on, be honest with me. And when clients do express reservations, we respond in the same way that we want partners to respond to each other's disagreements or reservations. We take time to understand the client and acknowledge understandable things about their reservations. We look for the legitimate underlying needs and values and fears that may be driving the client's reservations, and we validate these underlying needs and fears. Ultimately, if we can't agree with the client's perspective, we let the client know that we're going to take some time to think about it, rather than just flat out agreeing to disagree. If after taking some time to think about it, we still can't agree with the client's position, we explain why. And if we still don't make sense to the client, we encourage them to follow their own gut about what's best for them. Now let's talk about a seventh area where Petsy is different. Some therapists believe that you should start from scratch with each couple, without any assumptions about what will and won't work for this couple. But we believe that this flies in the face of scientific evidence about relationships. Over and over again, studies have identified a core set of abilities that are so important that they're considered to be not optional. If you want to stand a chance of having a satisfying, committed love relationship that stands the test of time, you simply have to have these abilities. Researchers measured the presence or absence of these abilities and found that they could predict the eventual fate of relationships with over 90% accuracy. Well, we believe it's our responsibility to inform clients about the strong evidence suggesting that some things almost always work better in relationships and other things almost never work. Every individual is unique, and a good therapist knows how to match suggestions and interventions in ways that fit each client's personality. But when it comes to the question of what is functional and dysfunctional in relationships, some principles cut across personalities, and they apply to all of us. Actually, most clients are relieved to learn there's a clear roadmap for improving their relationships. In fact, clients often look for PETC therapists because they know this approach is based on scientifically supported guidelines about what works and what doesn't in relationships. Many of our clients have been to other couples therapists before who were passive, allowing them to have arguments that went around and round in circles during therapy sessions. They switched to a PETC therapist because they loved the idea of having a therapist who would be able to prevent them from going down rabbit holes that lead to nowhere, and instead steer them with precision toward the changes they need to make. The eighth area where PETC is different involves how to handle the fact that partners can understand exactly the changes they need to make and be fully committed to making them. But when upsets happen, everything they've learned goes flying out the window, and they react on instinct. Let me elaborate just a little bit. Studies show that during disagreements, distressed partners react to each other in super predictable ways, and these predictable ways resist change. A person might be having a perfectly good day, but one side comment from their mate can trigger a cascade of automatic urges and inclinations that make it almost impossible for them to react effectively. You may have helped your clients change their patterns in 25 different therapy sessions, and then discover you have to do it again when they get upset with each other in their 26th session. Relationship habits are embedded in deeply conditioned nervous system tendencies that we can't change through knowledge and good intentions alone. We're dealing with deeply conditioned tendencies, and if they're going to change, it has to be through a reconditioning process. Weekly couples therapy sessions are great for a lot of things, but they're not great for reconditioning the automatic inclinations and tendencies that get triggered during disagreements. If you're a good therapist, you can get them to change during therapy sessions, but when you're not there, clients are often back to reacting on instinct. We know for sure that the automatic tendencies of the brain can be changed. The mechanisms that promote reconditioning are based on a neuroscience principle that's so well verified that it's called Hebb's Law, not Hebb's theory. The process involves repetitive pairing of things that weren't formally associated with each other, and doing it enough times so that when one thing happens, the other thing automatically happens. It's how musicians and athletes learn things so well that they become muscle memory. Well, what we didn't know until fairly recently is that the same process that wires behavioral sequences so thoroughly that people can execute incredibly complex movements so fast that there isn't time to think about it, this same process can be used to create automatic mental and emotional patterns too. For example, you can engage in exercises that will make different thoughts automatically pop into your head when you get upset. And you can change how revved up your nervous system gets when you feel upset and how long it stays that way. You can change the strength of the urges that you automatically get to criticize or defend yourself during disagreements. And you can change the degree to which you automatically feel okay even when things aren't going the way you want. The secret in the formula is repetition. Specific mind-body practice routines need to happen every day for many weeks in a row. So, in addition to weekly couples therapy sessions, PETC therapists meet individually with partners and act like personal trainers. We set up personalized daily practices that give clients new instinctive reactions in emotionally charged situations. This online training program will show you in microscopic detail how you can set your clients up with practices that will recondition the automatic tendencies that take them in the wrong direction during disagreements. A ninth area where PETSI is different involves situations we see every week at the couples clinic where partners have different levels of desire for connection. One partner wants more connection, but the other partner is basically satisfied with the amount of connection they already have. When either partner has a desire for more connection, most couples therapists will try and help this partner get it. And usually the partner who is already satisfied will go along with the program. But the problem is that this partner doesn't really feel the need for it, and usually they'll end up dragging their feet. It's not that they don't value connection, they just don't feel the need for more of it. But they're not against it, so they agree to do the activities and the interactions that the therapist recommends. But their heart isn't in it, and the process often peters out. And then the partner who wanted more connection can wind up feeling even more hurt and resentful than they had in the beginning. We've seen this process unfold enough times to make us want to do something different about it. Rather than siding with the partner who wants more connection, we try to help both partners get what they want. One partner wants more connection. What the other partner wants is usually for their mates to be more satisfied with the connection they already have. There isn't anything wrong with what either of them wants. And here's what we've discovered. Both partners are usually trying to get what they want from their mates in ways that backfire. They actually prevent them from getting what they want. For example, partners who want more connection often criticize their mates for not spending enough time with them, which actually makes their mates want to spend less time with them. And partners who want their mates to be more satisfied with the connection they already have often point out all the reasons why their mates should be more satisfied. They try and convince their mates that they're being too negative, too glass half empty-ish, or that they're taking things for granted. And when this doesn't work, they often just give up and start jumping through the hoops. They get out their phones and they make themselves reminders to bring flowers home, or they scour the internet looking for things to do this weekend. But a lot of the time they're doing these things in order to not have to deal with an unhappy partner. And their partner senses this, and it creates even more dissatisfaction. So both partners are acting in ways that sabotage them from getting the very things that they want. PETSI therapists help them stop doing these self-defeating things, and they help each of them start doing things that will almost always increase the odds that they'll get more of what they want from their mate. Videos in this training will help you detail exactly what these things are, how you can motivate each partner to do them, and how you can expertly coach each partner as they do them. You'll learn why it's important to work individually with each partner, because each of them often needs to be focusing on different things. For example, to begin with, the partner who wants more connection needs to work on dropping the criticism and recognizing there isn't anything wrong with their mate's lower level of motivation to have a higher level of connection. And the person who wants their partner to be more satisfied needs to drop the idea that what their mate wants is unreasonable, that their mate is too needy. So in these upcoming videos, you'll learn how to help each individual partner. And when you get to a place where both partners want more connection, look out, baby. We've got over 24 exercises for you. Now let's talk about the 10th area. So I've already talked to you guys about the fact that partners frequently come in to therapy with different levels of need for connection. And most of the time, each partner's level of need is in range. In other words, if they were coupled up with someone that was like them, their level of connection would work just fine. But there are extremes. There are different ends of the continuum where people have so much need that it's going to be tough for them to function in a relationship successfully with anyone. And there are people on the other end of the continuum that are so removed, so detached, that they're going to have trouble in most any relationship. Attachment researchers have been studying this, for decades, and they call people who have too much need and overwhelm their partners. These people are said to have an insecure attachment style, and more specifically, an anxious, preoccupied attachment style. So they're always looking for more assurance, more connection, more attention, stuff like that. People on the other end of the continuum are often referred to as having an avoidant attachment style or orientation. And these orientations are well researched. They tend to develop in childhood, and they're contingent on the way that the parent or primary caregiver, the degree to which they're attuned to the child's emotions, provide a safe space for the child to express their emotions, and is responsive. So people who have this anxious, preoccupied attachment style usually had a parent or a primary caregiver who was sometimes available and attuned and sometimes not. So if you're going to remember back to your freshman psychology class, this intermittent reinforcement schedule is actually the most powerful one, where an experimental animal is anticipating getting a reward, and sometimes it's there, like a pellet of food or something. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Well, that experimental animal will sit there pressing the bar, looking for the reward to come, 24/7. So it's the same conditioning process that happens with some people when they have an attuned parent sometimes, and then the parent is just gone other times. A person who has an avoidant attachment orientation usually had a primary caregiver who was pretty much consistently not available. All little kids are looking for attention and support of their parents, but when it just keeps on not coming, the part of the child's brain that longs for or looks for attachment just tends to go dormant. So they turn into adults who are sort of like overly emotionally independent. And here's one of the main points. These patterns are so strong and they have been there for so long that they happen automatically. So a lot of therapists think that the only way that a person can stop being so needy or stop being so avoidant of intimacy is if somewhere along the way they form a secure attachment with another person who can sort of do what their primary caregiver didn't do, that is, attune to them. And over time, then, this person will develop a secure attachment orientation. But it takes another person to sort of give it to them. So PETC therapists, like many couples therapists, believe that partners can actually become this significant person for each other, even if both partners begin with attachment insecurity. Therapists know that with their influence during therapy sessions, they can get partners to let go of the blame and withdraw stances and actually make meaningful and emotional contact. And if they do this enough times, these two partners can become securely attached to each other. But unlike most other couples therapists, PETC therapists also believe that there are things that each partner can do on their own to increase the attachment security they provide for each other. Let me explain. Most couples therapists believe that a person who has an insecure attachment orientation can't do much to change the way they function in a relationship on their own. So the significant changes can only happen during therapy sessions with the influence of the therapist. But is there really nothing a person who has an attachment insecurity can do on their own? We have found that there are absolutely things that people who have insecure attachment orientations can do to improve their relationship functioning. And they can do these things on their own, without the assistance of a therapist or anyone. There are some requirements in order for this to happen. The big one is that they must come to understand that they have emotional tendencies that are dysfunctional. Many people who have an anxious, preoccupied attachment style already suspect this because other people have often told them they're too needy. But people who have an avoidant attachment orientation often believe actually that everyone should be a little bit more like them. They're annoyed with people who always seem to be crying about not getting enough attention. They think these people should grow up and be adults and take care of themselves. But, the evidence is clear. People can be too emotionally independent and unable to form secure attachments with another person. So the first step is for the person who has an insecure attachment orientation to come to understand they have a significant problem and that it's in their own best interest to do something about it. They need to get on board with the idea. They need to do what they can do to be less extreme. And by being less extreme, we're not talking about behavioral changes. For example, we're not talking about a person who has an anxious, preoccupied attachment style, just kind of biting their tongue, reeling themselves in and pretending they don't have as much need as they do. The solution is for them to actually feel less desperate, less alarmed when their partners aren't available to them. And we're not talking about a person with an avoidant attachment orientation pretending they have more need for connection than they really do. People with avoidant attachment orientations do this all the time. That's how they survive in relationships. They sort of pretend they have feelings when they don't. So that's not the solution either. The question is, can their actual felt sense of need for connection change? Well, the answer is yes, if they really want to. They can do it through daily mind-body practices that prime their need for connection. The most important ingredient is how much desire they have to rewire. But the methods are there for them. We know from decades of research it's possible for people to literally change the way they experience and regulate their emotions. Through these daily practices, an anxious, preoccupied person can come to feel less alarmed when their mate is unavailable. And an avoidant person can engage in exercises that bring them closer to their own felt need for connection. Now, it's important to recognize that these practices by themselves can only get a person so far in changing their relationship functioning. Without attachment security, the currents of their automatic internal tendencies are strong, and I believe there's a ceiling or an upper limit on how much the daily practices can help them change. But even though a person's potential might be capped by their attachment insecurity, there's still a range of emotional flexibility within which they can operate. Through daily practices, they can move up to the top of their range. When they function at the top of their range, it has a calming effect on their partners, and their partners feel a bit more attachment security. And this helps their partners function better, which results in more attachment security, and a positive feedback takes over, where the daily practices of partner A lead to at least somewhat better relationship functioning of this partner. And this better relationship functioning enables partner B to experience somewhat more attachment security in their relationship. Partner B's increase in attachment security enables partner B to function at least somewhat better in their relationship, which enables partner A to experience at least somewhat more attachment security in their relationship. This in turn, coupled with their daily practices, enables partner A to function even better, resulting in more attachment security for partner B, and the process repeats itself over and over again. So let's sum up. A 10th way that PETSI is different is that whereas many couples therapists use only one avenue for increasing attachment security between two partners, and this avenue is couples therapy sessions, PETSI adds another avenue, daily practices that enable self-soothing for partners who have an anxious, preoccupied attachment orientation, and an increased desire for connection in partners who have an avoidant orientation. At the Couples Research Institute, across 3 decades, we've learned a tremendous amount about the exercises that are most helpful for motivated partners who experience too much or too little need for connection. Later in this training, we're going to teach you everything we've learned. So, in this recording, I've described how PETSI is different in the way it approaches 10 different dilemmas or problems that come up often in couples therapy. If what I've said resonates with you, I guarantee you're going to enjoy digging into the nuts and bolts of how to become a skilled PETSI practitioner that are detailed in this training. I'll see you in the next video.